Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Now, today we're going to go into this lesson pertaining to when the day begins and how to assess the day and the day's parts. This is a response to a brother. Brother, I forgot your name. I actually tried to look to see if I could find your post. That way I can respond to this using your name because you had asked a question, but I was unable to find that. So you know who you are, and this is to answer your question pertaining to when the day begins, because you said that you weren't clear on it. But it's not just you. There are many of our people who have no idea when the day begins or have been mistaught and lied to and when the day begins. So what we will do, we'll go through the scrolls like we normally do and actually explain this in great detail so that you can understand when the day begins and starts and ends via the instructions of the Most High. So I will explain this on the board, then I will actually stop the camera and we will go into the script. We'll go into the scrolls and read the text. All right. The day as we have been taught, the day starts in the morning. That's what we are taught. Okay. Now, the day has two parts. First part of the day is the dark part of the day. The second part of the day is the light part of the day. We will go into Genesis where we will read clearly that the dark was before the light. Okay? So, the dark was first, always has been first. Then came the light, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. So, the day has once again two parts. The dark side of the day, which is the first part of the day, the light side, the light part of the day, which is the second part of the day. Hence we have dark here, first side, light here, second side. Now, the dark of the day, referred to as even or evening. The light part of the day, referred to as morrow or morning and morrow. Now, in the middle of the night, the middle of the dark part of the day, we refer to that as midnight. The middle of the light part of the day, we refer to that as midday. So we have both midnight and midday. Okay? That's where the day is cut in half this way. All right? So now, within the portion, the half of the dark part of the day, which is the first part of the day, we have what we call even, which is the start. Okay, right when it gets dark, that's even or evening, and that begins the first quote unquote quarter of the day. All right, now in the middle of this dark side of the day, we have midnight, and that is the middle of the dark side of the day. Then we start having 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, etc. Right about 5:30, 6 o'clock, depending on what time of year it is. Okay, then it begins to be morrow, or it begins to be light, or what we call the morning part of the day. And the morning is where we see light. Okay, so now the day part begins as in the light part of the day, because the dark part of the day is completed, and now we go into the light part of the day. We will see light. Okay, now we know that the stars and the moon, okay, actually ruled the night part, okay, or the dark part, all right, and the sun rules the light part. So in quarters you have the even, okay, then you have late in the evening, which would be towards the morning time before the daylight occurs. Now, the first part of the daylight portion, which is indicated with this 3 right here, this is what we would call the morning, okay, or the morrow, okay. This is the morning portion of that day. Then in the middle of the daylight, we would have midday, which is the middle of the day. But we are to be specific. The whole entire thing is the day, but the day is split up in parts. We have dark half, light half. First part of the dark, second part of the dark. First part of the light, second part of the light. So the second part of the light part of the day is what we would call afternoon. Okay? We would refer to that commonly as the afternoon portion of the day. And as that afternoon portion dwindles down, it comes towards even, towards dark. Okay, so we go from afternoon all the way into even, which is the dark side, and the new day begins again. Now, there's a reason that first meal that we're eating in many of the English languages, it is called breakfast. Okay, now what that indicates is break fast. For during the portion of the dark side of the day, we are asleep. We are at rest. We are not eating anything in the first half of the day, for we are asleep and we are at rest. Now, when we come into the morrow, the break of dawn, we have something that's called breakfast. What that indicates is break fast. It is a meal that breaks the fast of the night or the dark part of the day. Okay, so that's what your breakfast really is. It is breaking the fast of the first half of your day. All right, so day has 4 parts once again. It's split into dark side and light side. 1, the first portion of the dark. 2, the second portion of the dark. First half of the day is over. 3, first part of the light. 4, second part of the light. Day is over. And we start that cycle over and over again. So, when we speak of the day in the English understanding, they would tell you that your day begins here. Your day begins in the first light of this portion of the day on the light side. If that is the case, and you go from morning to evening, then what you would have is a 12-hour day. And then we know that is not the case. So the day couldn't possibly start at when the light comes up and end when the light goes down. If that's the case, then your day is a 12-hour day. And that depends on what time of year it is. It can be longer, it can be shorter. Okay? So the day does not have just a light side. It has both a light and a dark side. Now, the Romans have taught us this. They have also taught us that this is midnight. So which means that you would have this part of the day. Okay, the day starts in the morning. Okay, and the new day starts at midnight. If we're to use that logic and use that concept that your day starts in the morning, all right, and then it ends at night. So you would start from here and you would have 3 parts of your day. You would have 2 parts being light and 1 part only being dark. And it certainly doesn't work that way. Now let's do it the other way. Let's say it starts at midnight, because that's what the Romans teach. Okay, they say at midnight starts the new day. So at midnight the clock changes over in these Western nations, as we're taught by these Romans, these European nations, those that walk contrary to the Most High's law. So let's say our day starts at midnight. Okay, so this is how they would have it broken up. If it starts at midnight, the first quarter would be the dark part of the day. Second quarter would be the light part of the day. Third quarter would be the light part of the day. And now the fourth quarter would be the dark part of the day again. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't split up into those parts in that manner. Okay? It's either light or it's dark. It's neither both. Okay? So we know good and well based on the scriptures that we read in Genesis, the evening or the even and the morning was the first day. The even represents night, represents darkness. The morrow or the morning represents daylight. So it was both the dark and the light that encompassed the entire day. It was not broken up starting at midnight. Then we had dark. Then we had light, and then dark again. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so what I will do, I will go into the script next to read the text that you may better understand it and that it may make some sense to you. So this is the diagram that I've pretty much put up here for you to kind of understand that the day has two parts. First part of the day is dark. Second part of the day is light. Okay, dark equals your night part of the day, and daylight equals your light part of the day. But either way, it makes a complete day. Your day starts once it gets dark at evening. Today is the Sabbath day. It is Saturday the 25th. Okay, so the Sabbath started last night at dark, and it will run all the way until this evening at dark, and then the new day will begin. All right, so I hope that has helped you, and now we'll go into the text. All right, I'm back. Peace and Yah bless once again. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Once again, brace yourselves, tighten up your jaws. Don't turn to the left or to the right, or you will get hit in the mouth. We must walk the straight and narrow way of the Most High's commandments. Now, you have just seen that board where I've explained to you exactly how the day actually functions, that it starts at dark. Okay, the day starts at dark. Now, let's verify some of this text. Let's go straight to Genesis chapter 1. Let's go to Genesis chapter 1, and we will read verse 1 through verse 5. All right. Now, we're at Genesis chapter 1. Okay, we will read 1 through 5. Genesis chapter 1 reads, "In the beginning, Yah created the heaven and the earth." Verse 2, "And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of Yah moved upon the face of the waters." Deep indicates waters. All right. So we know that this place called earth, so to speak, was mainly water and still is. They have claimed, the scientists, that the earth is 70+% water. Anyway, verse 3. "And Yah said, let there be light," because it was dark. Let there be light. So we know the dark was first, then the light. "And there was light." Verse 4. "And Yah saw the light, that it was good. And Yah divided the light from the darkness." So it is a clear separation from light and dark. Verse 5. "And Yah called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day." So what that indicates is the dark and the light made a complete day. All right, the dark and the light made a complete day. So when we speak of day in the Western hemisphere, so to speak, when we speak of the day, we're normally and predominantly referring to the light part of the day, i.e. from the time the sun comes up to the time the sun goes down. But that only indicates the latter half of the day. Before that light part that we know as the day, from the time the sun comes up to the time the sun goes down, that is only but the latter part of the day. The day started in the dark, in the even before. Okay, so the light he called day. Okay, and the darkness he called night. But both that darkness of the night and the light of the day makes what is known as a complete day. Just so you understand that. All right, before we move forward, let's go ahead and throw some side notes in here. We'll read Genesis chapter 6 and Genesis chapter 7 as side, excuse me, not chapter. We'll read Genesis verse 1. Chapter 1, excuse me, verse 6 and 7. Let's go to verse 6 and 7 for some edification pertaining to what's outside of these quote unquote heavens, if you will. So we're in Genesis chapter 1, and we will read verse 7. Verse 6, excuse me, verse 6. And Yah said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. All right? Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. Let there be a separating in the middle of all these waters that's upon the earth. Okay? And let it divide the waters from the waters. So, imagine you've got a big, let's say, make it a beach ball. Let's say we have a beach ball filled with water, right? And you put a firmament in the midst of the water. All right? That would be a separation. That way you would have water. If you put a separation just like that that example I just showed you with that circle, okay, I had midnight and midday, a line in the middle of the circle. Imagine that as a firmament to separate one half from the other, okay? So think of the firmament as something that's separating waters right down the middle, above and below, okay? Verse 6 once again. And Yah said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. So this firmament actually separates water from water. It is a barrier in the middle of the waters. Verse 7. And Yah made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. So this firmament, which he calls sky or heaven, that is nothing but a buffer zone between the water that's beneath the earth, i.e. your rivers, oceans, streams, lakes, etc., and the waters that's above the earth. So what this is indicating here, if you are to adhere to this text, is that outside of these heavenly bodies out here, you would need a submersible. There's not empty space out there. It is water. So you understand that. All right. Now let's go to verse 8. And Yah called the firmament heaven. So the heavens, above the heavens, is water. So you understand. And below the heavens, where you have the earth, is also water. And the even and the morning were the second day. So once again, the even, dark, and the morning, light. Evening dark, morning light made the complete day. Okay, so when you read the text, you will understand clearly that the evening and the morning made the first day. The dark and the light made the complete day. Also, you will know clearly that outside of the heavens, so to speak, there is water. All right. So this is what the text says. So you understand that. Now, pertaining to the word even or evening, if you would get a Strong's Concordance, some of you may not have one. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this video on pause. I'm going to go grab mine, bring it down so you can see exactly what it looks like, that you may go to your local bookstore or your Amazon and get one. I'll be right back. All right, here it is, okay? This is a Strong's Exhaustive Concordance of the Bible, okay? It's a pretty thick book, large book, okay? However, there's many words that you may not have the quite a good understanding of the transliteration of it, and this Strong's Exhaustive Concordance can help you with that. So you can grab that down at your local Barnes and Nobles. Runs about 20 bucks. 22 bucks, something like that. Okay, you put taxes on it. So it's not a very expensive book, but it certainly can be helpful in your studies. Okay, now, the word even in this Strong Concordance, okay, it is H6153. Evening, okay, in the Strong Concordance, it is H6153. And it is referred to as night. This we already know. Dusk. Dusk is dark. Okay. Latter part of the day is what it indicates. Okay. Also referred to as even or evening, or eventide or evening tide. Okay. It is dark. It is the end of the current day going into the next day is what it indicates. All right. Now, in the same text, considering we're pulling this out of Genesis. Okay. Morning, because it's in the evening and the morning. So we're looking at those specific terms being used in Genesis chapter 1. Okay. For morning, it would be H1242. That would be morning. Okay. Now, definitions and the understanding of that would be dawn. Okay. As of in the break of day. Dawn means when the first part of the day is over, which is the dark part, and now you begin to see the light part starts. The light part of the day starts. That's where you have what's known as the dawn or the break of dawn. All right. The break of the light. You'll now be able to see in the light because the dark part is over. So now we have the break of dawn, break of the darkness, if you will. All right. Now, morning also, which is H1242 again, it can also generally be described as day. Okay, which is what it indicates in this text, in this context in Genesis chapter 1. It can also indicate day early, as in the early morning. Once again, that would be dawn. Okay, so it would indicate to be morning, also referred to as morrow. So when we speak of a day, we have a few things that we must keep in mind. Number one, what part of the day are we speaking of? All right. If we're speaking of dawn, we know that's in the morning. All right. If we're speaking in the evening, we can look at that two ways. It can either be the end, towards the end of the current day, or it can be the beginning of the next day when we're speaking of evening or even. Now, that will all depend upon the context of the text for you to understand clearly which one of those they're referring to. All right, so the day has, like I said, you have two parts, dark and light. The dark is split into two, evening being the first quarter, and the latter part, the AM aspect of it, if you will, as we would know in the Western nations, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. before the light comes. That would be the latter part of the dark. Okay. And so the first half of the day is completed. Now we're going to go into the second half of the day. The second half of the day constitute light. That would be the morrow. That would be the morning. That would be the dawn. And so you have your first light. That's your third part of the day, if we're going to break it up into quarters. Okay. Then you have midday. And then after midday, you have the afternoon, which is the latter part of the light part of the day. Then there's evening, and the new day begins. Okay? So I hope this is helping you in some way, shape, or form that you may understand it. And it's important that you get into the text and that you read it and that you verify what's being said. Okay? Now, let's go to Exodus chapter 19. Exodus chapter 19. Exodus chapter 19, verse 11. Exodus chapter 19, verse 11. And it reads, "And be ready against the third day. For the third day, Yah will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai." So on the third day, the Most High was going to come down upon the mountain at Sinai and speak to the people. All right. Now, let's go to verse 16. All right. Same chapter, Exodus chapter 19. We'll go down to verse 16. And verse 16 reads, And it came to pass on the third day in the morning, okay, that there were thunders and lightnings, and a thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the trumpet exceedingly loud, so that all the people that was in the camp trembled. So we knew that on the third day, the Most High would be coming to commune with us. But in verse 16 of Exodus chapter 19, it tells us exactly what part of the day on that third day that he would do this. And this was done in the morning, okay? In the morning. That means it's before midday, or in the circle that I have just indicated where the day has 2 halves and 4 quarters, it will be the third quarter of the entire day in which the Most High spoke with us. Okay, he spoke to us in the morning. Okay, so that is understood. Now let's jump to Exodus chapter 12. Let's jump back to chapter 12. Exodus 12 is where you would read pertaining to the Passover, so we understand clearly that there is no such thing as Easter. It is Passover, and Passover is a clear indication of what the Most High did for his son, the entire house of Israel, by killing the firstborn of everything man and beast in Egypt on the behalf of his son, his firstborn, the nation of Israel. Now, let's go to Exodus chapter 12. We're at verse 6. And verse 6 reads, "And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the even," or in the evening. So we were to have this lamb of the goat, okay, of the sheep or of the goats, okay, as we are to keep Passover, we are to kill it on the even or the evening of the 14th day. All right. So the evening of the 14th day would be when the 14th day starts. That would be the end of the 13th day. As soon as it gets dark, the 14th day begins, and that's when we were to kill the Passover. All right? So you understand how the Passover works, because we have to kill the Passover. We ate the Passover at night. Okay, nighttime is dark. Nighttime is the first half of the day. All right, so if we had killed the Passover in the morning, right, at dawn, and cooked it, it'd be done cooking during the day. So we would be eating it in the day. But the Most High indicated clearly that we were to eat this thing at night, and that none was to be left in the morning. Which, if you're reading this, you clearly understand that when the day begins at dark, in the even, not at light in the morning. So what the Romans have done, they've taken everything that the Most High has given us, and they have stolen the scrolls. I know you know of that. Rewritten the Most High's laws, changed it around, made up their own, and fed it back to us, and us not having any knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, or any knowledge of who we are, or who we were and are. We have taken a hold of the Romans' nonsense and have actually, we have subscribed to it, and we shouldn't. Okay? Now, as I was stating pertaining to this Passover, we were to kill the Passover at even. What evening indicates is the first quarter of the day. All right? The first part of the day is even. So now, let's go down to verse 8. So we're to kill this Passover now, okay, at even, as soon as it gets dark. That's the start of the new day. That's when we're to kill the Passover. Now let's jump down to verse 8. "And they shall eat the flesh in that night." All right, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. So now, as we were celebrating this Passover, we're to kill this lamb at the end of the 13th day, okay, which is a dark. We start to cook that Passover the beginning of the 14th day, which is right there at dark. So we will cook it, and by the time the morning comes, that food is supposed to be cooked and eaten, and nothing is to be left until the morning. Hope you understand that. Verse 10, to verify that. Verse 10 reads, "And ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire." All the morning indicates here, the morning is the start of the light half of the day. When the day begins, it begins at dark. The minute the day begins, we're to kill the Passover. We're to cook it. So let's say we kill this Passover, say 8 o'clock is when it gets dark. Okay, nowadays it's kind of probably by 8:15, 8:30. Okay, so as soon as it gets dark, the new day begins, we kill the Passover. We cook the meat. Let's say start at 8:30, 9, 10, 11. Let's say it takes us 4 hours to cook this lamb, to roast them. All right, so we'll be done roasting this thing about 12 o'clock midnight, 11:30, something like that. All right, then we eat it. Okay, we may eat it on the latter part of the first half of the day, which is still that dark part. So we eat it, and none is to remain until the second half of that day, which would be in the morning. And if any is to remain when that light comes up, which is the second half of that day, we are to burn it with fire. So I hope you understand that. Okay, so this is all taking place at night, the first half of the day. Now, let's jump down to verse 18, the same chapter. Okay, we are in Exodus chapter 12, pertaining to the Passover. Verse 18, "In the first month of the 14th day of the month at even." Okay, at dark. So on the first month, on the 14th day of the month at even. At even indicates clearly that the minute the 14th day starts, the minute the 14th day starts, that is directly at the end of the 13th day. So on the 13th day, when there's no longer light and the dark begins, there is your 14th day. That's at evening. That's the time when we kill the Passover. First part of that day. Okay, let me read verse 18. "In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at even, as soon as it gets dark, ye shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening." All right, now, this unleavened bread. So we're dealing with Passover. On the 14th day of the month at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread. So we're supposed to eat unleavened bread, okay, on the 14th day of the month at evening. Now, on the 14th day, we're also killing the Passover. So I had mentioned in the past that Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, if you're following the videos, you've heard me say before, they're one and the same. In actuality, they're not one and the same, but they run concurrent. Okay? They actually go together, because with this lamb, we're to eat bitter herbs and unleavened bread. All right? And I'm going to show you exactly why I am making the correction that surely we're eating unleavened bread on the 14th day, but the feast of unleavened bread starts at a different time. It starts a day after Passover, though on the day of the Passover we are eating unleavened bread, and I'll make that clear here in a minute. All right, so let me read verse 18 of Exodus chapter 12. "In the first day, on the 14th day of the month at even." Okay, now let me explain this. Okay, so we are now in the 14th day of the month. We have killed the Passover right at the end of the 13th day. So now on the 14th day at evening, that's actually the 15th day. So the 14th day at evening is the start of the 15th day. Hope you understand that. So let me reread that. "In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at evening," which is the start of the 15th day, You shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. Now, verse 19. 7 days shall there be no leaven found in your houses. For whosoever eateth that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he be a stranger or born in the land. Now, let's go to Leviticus chapter 23, verse 5. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 5. Leviticus chapter 23, and we'll read verse 5. We have two more places to go. This will be a very short lesson. Now, Leviticus chapter 23, and we will read verse 5. And verse 5 reads, in the 14th day of the first month at even is Yah's Passover. Okay? In the 14th day of the first month at even is Yah's Passover. Okay? Now, as we go down to Leviticus chapter, still in chapter 23, but we go to verse 6, the very next verse, it says, and on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto Yah. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. So Passover is on the 14th. Feast of unleavened bread is the 15th. Let me reread that. Verse 5 of Leviticus chapter 23. In the 14th day of the first month at even is Yah's Passover. 14th day, first month, at even, when that day starts. All right? So at the end of the 13th, going into the 14th, soon as it gets dark on the 14th day, the very start of that day, that's when Passover starts. Okay, so we got Passover going. We killed the lamb. We're roasting everything up. Okay? Now, at the end of that day, when it gets dark, again, that will be the 15th. On that evening is when the Feast of Unleavened Bread starts. So they run concurrent. They run together. However, the Feast of Unleavened Bread will go one day past Passover because it started one day after Passover. So I hope you all understand that. Okay, so that that concludes this lesson for the brother that had asked to kind of give some clarification on when the day begins, because many people are unaware of that. We've been taught the beginning of the year is January 1. The Most High told us clearly that the first month unto us is the month of Abib, which translates to springtime, when everything blooms and comes to life. Okay? But this is not what the Romans have taught us. This is not what our enemies have taught us. In fact, on the day that the Most High had chosen and instructed us to be the first day of the month unto us, the Romans, the Western nations, our enemies, what they have done, they have made a mockery of the Most High. It's April Fools. It's time to joke and make mockery of the Most High. So as we start going into these texts, what we will understand is what Moshe have said is indeed true. Our enemies will be proven to be liars unto us. And everything that they have done has been upside down and backwards. So if your enemy tells you to go right, you know the correct way is to go left, because they're liars. And they have taken the words of the Most High and they have distorted it. But he did say that he would make the crooked things straight. Okay, and for us to get an understanding of it, all we need to do is return unto the Most High's law. All right. I hope you have gained some edification, some understanding through this lesson. 1, the day starts when it's dark. Dark half, light half. All right, so we understand that. That makes a complete day. Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread are two entirely separate things. Okay, however, they run concurrent. Passover is first. The first day after Passover, at that evening, will start the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So the Feast of Unleavened Bread runs one day past the Passover. So you understand that. All right. Once again, thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Continue to adhere to the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. Continue to read this book. Teach it to your children, to your friends. Share these videos, and ensure that anyone that's dwelling within your house is walking in accordance to the Most High's law. Because if they can't follow the Most High's law, they can't live in your house. It's very simple. Okay, so you are to walk within the confines of the Most High's law, and you're to do as Abraham did. You are to command your house to follow the laws, statutes, judgments of the Most High Yah. Once again, peace, Israel, and Yah bless.